I have noticed an awfully frequent usage of the word and then. I must sound like a child making up a story to his friends, to anyone who actually speaks English on a daily basis. I am pretty sure that this happens even outside of these videos. I do occasionally speak English even in the real world, and since I do it here, I have a sneaking suspicion that I might be doing it as well during those occasions, so that's another thing that I would like to work on, or at least be aware that it's an issue. They are piling on, slowly yet surely. Now, just a quick note regarding protagonists. I would like to ensure that as long as the situation at least slightly allows for it, the protagonist always confirms their kills, and an antagonist that doesn't need a plot device that allows him or her to continue being a threat even after being obviously dead, to push a certain storyline forward regardless of what happened previously, to avoid this sort of recycling of antagonists while dumbing down the protagonist just for the sake of keeping the antagonist in the game. That might have something to do with my own background of practicing martial art, but leaving an opponent that can still pose a threat behind, especially during, let's say, a group combat against multiple opponents, or even if it's just the protagonist against a singular opponent, it just wouldn't sit well with me and would cheapen the conflict in a way. So, all in all, a situation would have to be extremely dire for my protagonist to just leave whoever tried to kill or in other way harm him behind without confirming that it's not going to happen ever again, with the exception being a protagonist who's just learning this, although in a setting with actual threats, predators both in human form and an inhuman form. I firmly believe that you either learn very, very fast or, well, you will lose the opportunity to learn. I would just rather come up with different ways to add tension to my story than creating a protagonist who just allows himself to get stabbed by an opponent that he already conquered. Anyway, now for the rapid arrows. The last time I stopped in the middle of a train adventure, and now it's time to continue that. The two suspicious individuals that jumped on board of the train immediately began unloading crates and other content of the wagon, and it turned out that they were train robbers. Once the rabbit arrows realized that, they immediately jumped out from behind their hiding place and attempted to stop the robbers from at least getting everything that the wagon was transporting. But even though it was 5 against 2, it was still 5 boys against 2 fully grown adults. Adding to that the fact that they were ready to do almost anything, the rapid arrows failed to stop the men from escaping, but at least they saved most of the goods from the wagon they were hiding in. When they finally arrived at a station, they immediately tried to report that they encountered thieves, and fortunately for them, they didn't have to explain how did they end up in the wagon. Then the police got involved, including a dog to track the smell, and when the boys identified the exact spot where the thieves jumped out, the hunt is on, and with the help of the four-legged detective, they managed to catch the thieves right in the middle of unboxing their loot. Things turned out well, and the Rapid Arrows receive a free ticket for the next train so that they can reach their home before the skies fall on their heads in the form of their parents beating them for staying out for way too long. And it's Speedy's birthday celebration. First thing first, he needs to sign the club chronicle with a pen specifically prepared by Arca. That something isn't exactly as it seems is hinted by the fact that Yarka was holding the pen while offering it to Speedy by the very tip of its handle, and Speedy rather soon finds out what was wrong because the rest was covered with ink, painting his whole hand black. But Mirek says that it was just a small prank for the birthday boy, and that now he just needs to sit on the ceremonial throne and they can wish him happy birthday. The moment he does that, something seems wrong, and the laughter of the rest of the boys isn't helping either. Indra gives him a hint to try and get up, and as it turns out, the chair is now glued to Speedy's pants. Those were patched, so the removal of the stuck chair wasn't without a sacrifice, as when we see him chasing the boys out so that he can prepare a surprise for them, one of the patches is hanging down loose and Speedy is ready for vengeance. He prepares 2 bowls of cold water and prepares a trap, balancing them on top of a slightly open door. He shouts for the boys that his surprise is ready and is waiting for the first one to enter to receive a cold shower. For what he did not account for was the chance that someone else would hear his shout, and it was a lady from the house who wasn't exactly happy about the boys' club room being there and was ready to give the boys some verbal spanking for making ruckus. When she barged in ready to spit fire, she received the shower instead. Speedy, now completely done with all this, just picked up a broomstick and decided to reward the very first planter that steps into the club room with one swift curved strike with his instrument of vengeance. But to top this whole catastrophic celebration with one last disaster, the first person, quote unquote, to enter the club room was a birthday cake that the boys finally brought over to show Speedy that he did not suffer for nothing, and that was exactly where the broom landed. Next one is a lesson again. The Rapid Arrows encounter one boy smoking heavily, looking all gaunt. They advise him to stop since smoking is a horrible poison for young boys, but he just brushes them off, and so it's time to think of a way to stop him from destroying himself. And we also see the first intersection of storylines and the first mention of the district called Shades, this secretive, mysterious, almost criminal-ish part of the town where some of the darker, more serious adventures of these boys happen, and shades appear in the novels that were running alongside the comic books. But this is just the first mention that there are some trouble in the shades, and the main focus is on the boy who's ruining his life with smoking and how to put him back on tracks. And the best way they figure out is to appeal on his pride because he was a good athlete, undisputed champion of the boys of his age group, and they are going to give him a devastating defeat, inviting the very best of the active boys around them to show him how much weaker he became ever since he started with his new horrible habit. So they send this Yurka a letter inviting him to this friendly competition, and we see Mirek talking to the boys they invited that they have to give it their all so that Yurka can see how much he dropped and hopefully wake up. One of the other boys talks to him, telling him that he looks like he hasn't eaten for weeks, but again, Yurka just brushes it off, telling the other boy to mind his own business, that he is going to win anyway. Something we'll immediately see if it's true, because the first discipline is on and it's sprint, which ends in immediate defeat of Yurka. He's not coming even close to the rest of the boys. That's not enough though, he isn't broken yet, so the next one is high jump, and he fails there as well, failing at a height that wasn't even close to the rest of the boys. Things are beginning to look grim for the previous champion, and the last event is shot put, and he isn't even able to throw far enough to reach the measuring little flags. After the end of the competition, Mirek reads out the results, and the lowest one is for the previous champion, Jirka Kalos. He seems downtrodden, and it's clear that their efforts were not in vain, because in the next panel we see him approach the boys that taught him smoking, throws the cigarettes on the ground, slightly shifting the responsibility for his own poor choices onto them. They dismiss him, and we see him in the next panel exercising and recalling what Mirek told him: stop smoking, work out, and you'll be back on the top of your game soon. And that's it for today. I noticed another bad habit, maybe an overuse of the word that and but. And finally, I think I mentioned that one before, but I still have a lot of work to do and a lot of the rapid arrows to go through. So I'm going to do that in the next one.